Welcome back to the channel. I don't know what exactly I'm gonna call this because I'm all out of sorts. The schedule is mad. As always, please like and subscribe, share with a friend, a colleague, a relative, an associate, anyone in between, including an enemy. I appreciate all the views, all the comments, all the likes and everything else. As you guys know, I've been away for a few weeks. I tried to do a couple videos while I was away. I did okay while I was in Miami, but when I was in DR, the reception, the network, the lack of Wi-Fi, everything just made it mad to put these videos out. I remember the last one I tried to do took me like an hour and a half to upload after editing and everything. Just wasn't worth it, and I don't know how much I ended up getting charged because of it. So I said I'd do it all when I came back. I could have done some while I was in Canada, to be fair, but I just wanted to sort of chill out, you know, get back into the groove, get back into the swing of things. There was a lot of stuff that happened. I can't ignore that, and tomorrow I will be doing a summary video of all of the biggest talking points that took place. Everything from Tyson Fury and his call out after call out after call out after call out, to the continued fallout of the Devin Haney and Vasily Lomachenko fight, Boots Ennis and Terence Crawford's conversation, Anthony Joshua and Dillian White's back and forth stuff, the Alexander Usyk stuff with Skills Challenge, the Canelo and Badu Jack stuff, and whatever else came out in between that time. I will find everything. I'll run through and do just a big summary video of my thoughts. But for this one, I thought, let me just sort of give my takes on the fights that took place from the 27th onwards. So as you guys know, obviously I covered Katie Taylor and Chantel Cameron, and I covered Lomachenko and Haney. So we're going to leave that alone. You guys kind of already know my takes on that, so all good. Let's go to the 27th card. So we had the big triple header in the UK, 3 title fights, 2 of them at featherweight and 1 at cruiserweight. So I guess we'll start with the cruiserweight one, since that's the difference of all of them. So you had Lawrence Okolie versus Chris Billam-Smith at the Vitality Stadium in Bournemouth. Basically, Chris Billam-Smith was the home fighter, even though he was the challenger fighting for Lawrence Okolie's belts. Lawrence Okolie had been in the ring 7 weeks prior, so it was a very, very quick turnaround, and not one that we're used to seeing in this day and age. So if nothing else, I have to actually give him respect and credit for not having a long layoff. But I guess also that benefited him in terms of keeping his weight down, not, you know, ballooning up or anything in between camps. I did make a question though, and I even asked him when we were at the announcement, and I asked Ben Shalom as well, and Johnny Nelson, was it maybe a mistake to have the fight so close after the last one? We don't know if there's any lasting effects from that fight, or whether any injuries could spring up from not giving the body time to rest, but they all seem to say nope, all fine, all systems go. So we get into the fight. The first 3 rounds were essentially all Lawrence Okolie. You know, there was a lot of sort of grappling on the inside, hugging. There was a couple of good straights that he put in through the leaky defense of Chris Billam-Smith, all the way until in the 4th round he gets extremely sloppy. I think he goes for a left, which gets slipped by Chris Billam-Smith, who then lands a leaping left hook to the jaw of Lawrence Okolie while he's basically side on, and he goes down. And from that point on, everything that Lawrence done prior was amplified in terms of the hugging, the holding, the quote-unquote trying to grapple on the inside, but he was literally gripsing Chris Billam-Smith's arm, holding one arm and then trying to punch with the other, like basically street fighting, where you prevent the opponent from being able to strike you, tie up their hand, but you've got one hand free and you're trying to get that damage in before they've got a chance to swing back with their free arm. Or you swing and then you nullify that arm, and then you ungrapple the other one. And, you know, if you've been in a street fight, if you've been in a fight period, you know the code. Like, essentially, you just trying to stop the other guy from being able to throw a punch at you. And that's pretty much what he done the entire time. Now, the biggest controversy with this is ultimately about the draw scorecard, the 112 card. And I saw that Ade done a video on this saying basically, but he tried to score the fight himself, and he actually had a scorecard of 113-112 to Chris Billam-Smith. So he understands how that judge was able to get to that scorecard. Now, in the context of the fight, it does look mad, because you've got a man that's been knocked down 3 times, 2 of them questionable, 1 guaranteed, 2 questionable, but 3 counted knockdowns and 2 points taken off. 5 points altogether, and somehow he manages to get a draw card, which would ultimately mean that he would have had to have won 9 of the other rounds, or won 8 of them and had a draw round with his opponent to equal that scorecard of 112-112. Now, is it possible that he won 8 rounds in the fight? Funnily enough, it actually is. I watched it. I've only watched it once, bear in mind. I couldn't really stomach to watch it again, but I did try to watch it with an observed eye. And to be fair, in a lot of the rounds, minus the 3 that he got knocked down in, he was actually winning those rounds. He was landing more than Chris Billam-Smith. He was actually putting in more work than Chris Billam-Smith. Yes, he was grappling and Chris couldn't really work, but he was essentially forcing and kind of just doing more. And even in one of the rounds, he got a point taken off. I think it was, I can't remember if it was both, but one of them, he was definitely winning that round as well. So it wasn't a 10-8 to Chris Billam-Smith. It ended up being, it was like a 9-9 to him. And it quite easily, I guess, could have been 9-9 for both the rounds he got points taken off. I don't properly remember, as I said, don't quote me, but I can see how the card happened. But ultimately, I guess the right person did win it. If you lose 5 points in a fight, realistically, you ain't supposed to win that, unless you sweeped like 11 rounds and you lost 5 points in 1, or you sweeped like 10 rounds and 2 of them you got like 2 knockdowns in 2 other rounds or something like that. Then yeah, there's not really a way you're supposed to be able to win that. Biggest issue with that whole thing is his reaction to it. Now, obviously, he's like, you know, look, the better guy won on the night. Congratulations to Chris. Like, I want my rematch and blah, blah, blah. But the fact that he doesn't seem phased or disappointed or upset visibly to the public that he's just lost his belt, he's no longer a champion, almost speaks to like a mentality of not really caring. And I think that's part of the reason why he hasn't really got such a strong fan base, whether it's in London or anywhere else in the UK, outside of his core associates, and I guess maybe his family, his brother and everything. It doesn't really seem like there's too many people that's really invested in him, and it seems because he doesn't give you the impression that he's invested in himself. And it's funny, like some of the worst things he ever done was when he said things like, at the end of the day, like, if I've got to have a stinker but I keep my belt, then, you know, essentially that's what it's got to be. Or, you know, none of these guys have come close to beating me, so like, if, you know, it works for me, if I need to do that, then I need to do that. Well, unfortunately, now it hasn't worked. Now you have no belt, so unless you go for that rematch directly, what do you do next? Because no one's going to pay to watch you in the cruiserweight division, and you're going to have to impress a couple people in the heavyweight division in order to get any type of attraction to yourself. And I don't think a lot of the stuff that happens and that he does is even going to be attractive at heavyweight. The only benefit is a lot of those things like the grappling and stuff, I don't think he's going to be able to get away with, because those guys are just naturally a lot bigger than him, generally speaking. Most of them have got like thicker set legs, you know, bigger back muscles, just bigger, stockier guys who almost are going to relish the fact that he's jumped in and not keeping them at range. So we'll see. There's another point to that, but I think I'm going to save that for the video tomorrow, because it's very interesting, something to do with Ben Shalom. Moving on to Leigh Wood and Mauricio Lara. Now this one, obviously Mauricio Lara was unable to defend his title he was told by the British Boxing Board of Control that if he came in to the weigh-in at under 128.4 pounds or 128.6 somewhere, that they wouldn't allow him to fight. They'd call the fight off and he'd be stripped anyway. So he was effectively stripped the day before for not making the first check weight. Now I'm sure he's had to make those check weights before, so it's not like this is a new thing to him which he wasn't aware of. I'm sure he's been aware of it. So the fact he hasn't made it, to a degree, does show a lack of professionalism, and I did question that when I did my predictions video. But I also, as I said before, I question how quickly he was sort of made to come back for that rematch. You know, bearing in mind Leigh Wood didn't have to do any traveling at all. Like, Lara had to come back for the announcement, then fly back, so you don't know if there was any sort of jet lag kind of thing set in there. Clearly he's probably had 1 or 2 weeks enjoying himself, enjoying his belt and his money after the first fight, which you would do becoming a first-time champion, not expecting to be brought back into the ring within sort of, what was it, 9 weeks, 10 weeks from the first one, something along those lines. So yeah, you can kind of you can sort of understand why maybe at that point, yeah, he's gone up in weight a little bit. Now he has to come back and do this little promotional thing. He's gone back away. His whole timeline is disrupted a little bit compared to Leigh Wood, who's obviously he's in his country, he's in his city. At most he's got to do is travel down to Essex to do his training camp, or Southend, or wherever Ben Davison his gym is. Like, so realistically, when you look at it, obviously he had every single advantage in there to get the belt back, which is fair enough, I guess, understandable. But that's the one reason I cut Lara a little bit of slack, just because, you know, there was a quick turnaround and he had to do a lot of traveling in between, and we don't know how that necessarily affected him. But in the fight, he was very poor. Now look, he didn't even try to make the 128.4. I don't particularly blame him. We've already stripped him for the belt. What's he going to drain himself down for? But he done, whether it was a rehydration clause or he done the check weight afterwards, they was fine. They said let the fight go ahead. He looked very lethargic, so maybe he even came into the country too late as opposed to what he normally does. He didn't look like he had much energy. He looked like he was just basically looking for one big shot the entire night. It worked for him in the first fight, but you know, as most people said, Leigh Wood was winning that first fight fairly convincingly prior to what happened in that 7th round with that, you know, that split second left hook from hell. And Leigh Wood ended up winning this fight exactly the way I said that I predicted he would win the first fight. Keep it long, keep it engaged, and every time Mauricio Lara tries to step in, hit him with that backhand and stop him, and stop his movement, stop his entry from the inside, keeping him frustrated because he can't break the range. I actually said in my preview that Leigh Wood had a feeling like he wouldn't be able to stick to the game plan because he didn't last time. He didn't against Michael Conlan either. He does seem to sell out and want to trade off at times, which is his downfall. But on this one, he was 100% patient. He was composed. He caught a couple shots, but for the most part, he kept his chin tucked and he kept his arms and his hands adjusted to where they needed to be at all times. So unanimous 12-round decision. Won basically, I think, every round except one, which might have been the third. Potentially, you might have been able to give Lara I think maybe the 5th as well, possibly. I haven't watched the fight in 2 weeks, so don't quote me on that. But yeah, it was a very comfortable win for Leigh Wood. Now he's got Khomutov as his mandatory. Don't know if he's going to take the mandatory or whether he's going to try to vacate the belt, or for a Josh Warrington fight, you know, at where did you want that fight at? What is it, the City Ground? So we'll see what happens, but obviously congratulations, big congratulations to Leigh Wood and regaining that title. Michael Conlan and Bernardo Lopez. I predicted this one. I pretty much went on the round table with Joe Habib, and I think Calix was on there as well. Boxing Wave, Danny from Fight Fan TV was on the show as well. D-Style Boxing, so big up to all of them. There was a couple others as well. Can't remember who else was on that particular show, but yeah, pretty much said he was going to be able to start fast, but he was going to get pressured. He was going to basically run out of gas anywhere from sort of the third to fourth round on, that he would sort of get he would start getting pressurized. But I actually said that he would maybe last until about the eighth round. I said between the fifth and the eighth he's going to get pressurized, and then by the ninth he'll be, you know, he'll get knocked out. And I said knocked out brutally. Well, he got knocked out brutally in the fifth instead. But ultimately the same thing happened that I predicted would happen. He's a pure boxer by trade. He tried to become a puncher overnight in that fight, and basically he wore himself out, and he just played into the hands of someone who can do that role and do that job a lot better than he did. And that's ultimately what happened with him. I don't know what he does next. If he's got aspirations to still be a world champion, I mean, look, ultimately it's not a crazy idea. There are 4 champions at the division. Maybe you try and fight one of the others. Maybe you wait for a belt to go vacant and see if you can pick that up. Maybe if you can shrink back down to 122, see if you can pick off one of the weaker guys down there at the moment, since, you know, Inoue and Fulton have kind of got them stuff to deal with. Maybe you can take one of the others, take that, then maybe vacate it before one of those fights comes up. But ultimately, maybe it's time to just go back down a level, because that's clearly not your crowd right now. But there's a chance. Look, George Groves, he won a title on his 4th attempt. Frank Bruno, what was it? I think it was his 3rd or his 4th attempt when he won a title. So it's not out of the realms of possibility, but it's just whether he's got the hunger to go through the fires again and build himself back up into that mandatory position. So we'll see. So within that week, I was 60% of all of my picks since I went away, because out of the 5 fights that was there, I got 3 of them right, 2 of them wrong. I predicted that Coley would beat Billum Smith, but obviously we saw what happened there. And I predicted that Lara would repeat, just because at this point he'd be too big, he'd be a bit fresher than Wood might be a bit fragile, and Lara would just try and steamroll him in the first half of the fight. Well, he did try to, but yeah, the energy just wasn't there. He just wasn't motivated enough. Maybe he just didn't have enough energy, and Lee Wood just had the perfect game plan, and he had the crowd behind him as well. So again, congrats to him. Moving on to this week real briefly, there's not a huge amount to talk about. You had Clarissa Shields versus Maricela Conejo, based because Hannah Gabriel's tested positive for supposedly applying ointment to her dog after having a abdominal surgery, and the ointment had a steroid in it. Now, okay, full disclaimer, I don't know whether she's talking the truth or not, whether that's what really happened. I noticed that Lou DiBella seems to be very particular in having stuff to say about other people who, fail PED tests, except for when it's his fighters. Jean Pascal, now Hannah Gabriel's. There's others, but I'm not even going to go into those names, but we're just going to, we'll keep it at that. Now, the only thing is, I actually have to say, whether or not it's true or not, the excuse is actually plausible. It's stupid, it's laughable, but it is actually plausible. I mean, think about it. As a black man, I have to cream my skin. If I don't cream my skin, you start looking ashy on camera, look ashy in real life. It's a bit embarrassing when, you got those little white cracks, or the skin just be peeling up and cracking up. So you want that soft, buttery skin, so you cream your skin. What happens? You put cream on your hands, put cream on your arms. What does it do? It absorbs into your skin, into the top layer of your skin, makes it nice and smooth, and stops it from looking dry, and it hydrates you from the inside out, right? Well, it's exact same with steroid cream. I mean, how many times has someone had an issue with their wrist, or I had an issue with my wrist a time ago? They actually gave me a steroid injection which corrected my wrist, but ultimately it went into the bloodstream. I've been given an ointment before for an issue that I had, which cleared up the issue. But what does it do? It absorbs into the skin. So yes, it is possible that you can have a cream and it absorbs into your skin, and therefore trace amounts end up within your bloodstream if you're taking blood or urine tests. And then I guess the case is that she then said that ultimately, as soon as she realized, she stopped using the cream. But the issue is you didn't report it. So when you start doing VADA testing, you're supposed to, anything you've been taking, anything you've been in contact with, like, she should have mentioned from then and there that this stuff is a potential, oh well, I was giving my dog this ointment, or I've had to do this before, so these things here, there's potentials that maybe they could be in my system in some way, shape or form, or I've used this before, I've used that, are these okay? She didn't do that. So ultimately, strict liability, and I've got to say guilty, because if you did it as an accident, you would realize, oh snap, there's this stuff in here, I've got to stop using it. But even outside of that, my thing is, if you're applying ointment to a dog, to a human being, or anything like that, in any type of professional or manner, why are you not wearing gloves? To protect both yourself from any diseases or fluids and stuff that you're not supposed to have within yourself, and vice versa, so that you don't transfer any diseases or bacteria or into the infected area of the dog or the person that you're applying the ointment to. There's a reason why when you go to the doctors and the dentist, they put on latex gloves to prevent the barrier and prevent any contamination. It's just what happens. So yeah, all of that to me don't really make sense. And whether she's innocent or in terms of like doing it on purpose or not, 100% whatever ban or issue she has, just got to deal with it. Moving on to the fight. It was a very easy fight to predict, although I tried to be a bit bold. I'm in this predictions league, we'll call it, and basically I said, you know what, I think this is going to be the time that Claressa Shields actually gets her third KO. I felt like she would manage to get the stoppage. She's been working on turning her punches over a bit better. I know that Maricela can leave herself a bit open when she's trying to attack. She very sloppy with her defensive hands when she's jabbing. She dips down low, making herself eye level with her opponent when she's a taller girl. All of these things, I knew they were there, but I know that she's also tough. But I just thought that she would take some punches, maybe get stopped by the ref, not necessarily get knocked out, but ref says, nah, enough's enough. But it's like every time I want to give Claressa that opportunity to be what she can be, she just doesn't perform. The problem with Claressa, right now, when I say she doesn't perform, look, she won every round at a canter. So when I say she didn't perform, I'm talking about in terms of, if she wants to be this knockout artist, she can't keep headhunting the way she does. In these 2-minute rounds, everyone knows that you're going to try this flurry thing. Ultimately, you're going to get one good shot off, and then they're going to tuck up for everything else that's coming their way. Like, she doesn't apply any pressure to the body. The one thing she needs to do, she's fast enough. She's faster than everyone that she's fighting at these weights, right? So there's no reason to headhunt them, because ultimately that's what they're expecting you to do. Work that body, dig to that body. If anything, don't even look for any headshots in the first couple rounds. Do very similar to what Devin Haney did against Vasily Lomachenko. Like, body, just target the body, take those legs away. Even get physical, start using some elbows to frame them, use the forearm, push them off, dig underneath while you've got them up here. When the ref's about to say break, dig one in. Get a couple warnings if you have to. Like, if you really want to just get nasty with it, because they can't hang with you any other way. And if she'd have done all of that, she probably could have forced that stoppage late on in the fight, but she's too busy trying to go for these big, wild swinging overhand rights, which are, number one, kind of easy to protect against, easy to brace for, and that person is in a defensive position when it's coming anyway. She had the most success when she started to straighten the punch instead of looping it. That's where she stunned Maria on several occasions. But on those occasions, even there's one or two times she stunned Maria quite badly from those straights, but then was just admiring her work. It's like she didn't follow up with anything. She didn't leap in with that, with that hook to the body. She didn't leap in trying to throw that uppercut from an angle that the girl's not predicting to see. Everything is just this da 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 bang da 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 da, and it's like she's got a lot of like the skills. Obviously, there's a lot of skills there, but it doesn't feel like she really applies those skills as much as she should be. Part of that might be because maybe can't get to fight enough in terms of the activity to really start to hone and work on that stuff. But she's not going to get the knockouts if she doesn't change up the approach. Or if anything, if you're the GOAT and all of this stuff, like campaign for these 3-minute rounds. Like you say that if this is your height, or you apparently got paid more for this fight than you did for the Savannah Marshall one, well, this was your fight. You called the shots. Call the shots for 3-minute rounds. It's your event, so it's gonna live and die by what you do. Call for those 3-minute rounds. Get the knockout, and then that's gonna benefit you for the next fight that you have, and then you can pay yourself extra for the fact that you did 3-minute rounds in the fight. So look, there's a lot of stuff still to work on, and that's really mad to say, considering how clearly leagues above most of the other people up in those weight classes she is. But there's a lot of work to go. You look at even someone like Franchon, Shadasia Green, like these guys, like these ladies, sorry, the way that they turn their shots over, even Aline Cederroos, like you can see that they turn their shots over in a way that generates that power. Clarissa it's like she just can't seem to manage it. She just tries to throw her entire body weight into it without engaging the correct technique to make sure that the power transfers properly. So yeah, the shot itself might be like, it might seem heavy, and it might even be heavy, but it's not concussive. It's not it probably feels more like just a bit of a heavy thud as opposed to a boom, like kind of thing. And yeah, look, it's just, I say that because I want her to be more successful than she is. I don't particularly like her attitude. I don't like how she carries on, but she's immensely talented. But the only way for her to generate and build up a much bigger fan base, generate more money, and generate more sellability, especially when you are 2 and 3 and 4 levels above a lot of the competition that you are fighting, you have to get them out of there. Or if you don't get them out of there, you have to put such a beating on them that people feel bad for them. You gotta drop them at least once or twice, and then things start to rise from there. So that's where the changes got to come, in my opinion. But hey, this is just me, a standard person talking. Whether it means anything, I don't know. Anyway, that's sort of my take on the fights that have happened over the last couple of weeks that I didn't get to talk on before. Again, tomorrow there will be a video just sort of going over everything else I missed. Then there will probably be another video on Thursday. 2 videos actually, one of them regarding the latest stories from this week particularly, and then basis picks, because there is boxing from Friday and Saturday, so I'll do both of them tomorrow. And yeah, I'll do both of those on Thursday, sorry. And yeah, we'll sort of keep it moving, see how we get for time and all of that sort of good stuff. And yeah, this one, not even gonna have a thumbnail, it's just gonna be me as I am. I hope you guys watch, but again, as I said, like and subscribe. Apologies if it's a bit rambly, but like I said, there was a couple of weeks to get through. I had to get my thoughts off. Appreciate you all, and I'll catch you on the next video. See you tomorrow.